everybody, this is Robin with Creative2xmom, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you the books we read in the month of June. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Robin and this is Creative2xmom. This channel is all about homeschooling, parenthood, and thriving in the day-to-day. And in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you the books that we read in the month of June. I have quite a stack here in front of me because June and July tend to be my heavier reading months. I think we're coming off the end of the school year and I just get so excited about having all this free time to catch up on my personal reading. So I have quite a few in front of me, plus I have a few that I will have to insert pictures for today. And I think what I'm going to do this time, instead of doing them in the order read, I'm going to put them in a fiction and a non-fiction category, and then at the end of the video I'll share with you our read alouds and our homeschool. So looking at the fiction category, the last couple months you guys know I have been reading through the Borrowers series. So at the beginning of June I finished off book number 5, which was Borrowers Avenged. This picks up where the borrowers have been kidnapped. They were kidnapped in book 4 and escaped right at the end, so book 5 picks up where they are trying to find a new place to live. They know they can't necessarily go back to where they were before because they've been discovered, and they want to keep their freedom. So they're finding a new place to live, but the people who kidnapped them in book 4 make a reappearance in book 5. So this sort of wraps up their story. Now I will say, even at the end of book 5, I felt like you were still left on a little bit of a cliffhanger, which to me is the sign of a good series because I didn't want everything completely wrapped up and left it to my own imagination. So if you have a kiddo in probably that 4th through 6th grade level, or even as an adult, if you haven't read these before, they're a lot of fun and they hold interest all the way through. So I went from something really light to something really heavy, and that is George Orwell's 1984. This is a piece of classic literature that I have never read in the past. I've always wanted to, and I have to say, after reading it, oh my goodness, this takes you to some very, very dark places. There were a few parallels to real life that I thought were very interesting, and then there were some things that I thought, oh my goodness, how bizarre, this world that Orwell has created where you have to say the right thing, you even have to think the right thing because you're being watched all the time. People are watching the way you react to things, the look in your eyes even. You can't show surprise. Your expressions have to be very monotone. And this is about a man who starts to uncover what that world is really like. Does he want to be true to himself, or does he want to just be another part of society that is so numbed out to real life? Really interesting book, not that challenging. Sometimes you get into classic literature and it's hard to wade through. This one was actually pretty easy to read through, but just the whole ideas and everything that he went through in challenging the system, very interesting. I don't know that I would say it was a gripping read so much as, if you've never read it, I would definitely recommend going through 1984. Pretty insightful. Like I said, there were a few parallels that I saw, and it made me question myself. One of the things that they talk about is how they're making the language more efficient. So you have less words to express more ideas. And it made me think about our current society, how we have lost a lot of our deeper, richer vocabulary, and how that possibly limits the way we think about the world. So if you haven't read George Orwell's 1984, I would definitely recommend you pick up a copy. The last piece of fiction that I read in the month of June was another young adult reader. This is The Kite Fighters. I think it's at a 5th grade reading level, which I would say is pretty accurate. That's what my library's got it labeled at. This is 2 young boys who they like to go flying kites together. They are in Korea. The one is a very good kite maker, and the other one sort of says he feels the wind talking to him, and so they work together to create this kite. And one day the emperor sees it and he commissions them to make him a kite. Well, from there they develop this friendship that leads into a kite fighting competition. And there's a lot of pressure on these boys, number one, for honor of the family, and number two, because they are doing this under sort of the commission of the emperor and where that leads. It goes into a lot of family relationships, especially the relationships between these two boys. I was pre-reading this to hand it off to my 10-year-old son. I'm going to happily hand it off to him. I didn't really see any red flags in it, and I think it would be a good look into some medieval history that we're going to be studying in the fall. So let's move on to the nonfiction category. The first nonfiction book that I picked up this month was The Circle Maker by Mark Batterson. This book has been out for quite a while. I would say probably about 10 years. If you've been around in Christian circles very long, you know that this book is about prayer and the power of prayer. It's written from a pastor's perspective, and he uses a lot of examples from his own life and how praying over his ministry and what the Lord did in that. I think my biggest takeaway from this book was about the idea of dreaming big and how prayer expands our vision and helps us to see from the Lord's perspective versus seeing things from our own limited perspective. It challenges us to pray with more expectation, and it challenges us to pray for larger dreams. I think if you're just studying prayer and the power of prayer and speaking with the Lord, this is a great book to pick up. It even challenged me even this far into my Christian walk. So I would say if your library has it, definitely check it out. Other than that, maybe look into it. This might be one that you would even want to purchase. Continuing on in the nonfiction category, the next book I want to mention is the Read Aloud Family. Now this book I've had on my Kindle for a while, and I think this is my second time through the book. And it's this woman's story of how she got into reading aloud with her kids, some of the steps that she took, but really it's her story of what it created as far as their family culture goes, the closeness with her kids, their shared experience. We are all about experiences in our home, whether that's going to the beach or going on vacation or going hiking or going kayaking. We love those experiences, but did you know you can create a shared family culture and experience through books as well, and what that creates in that unity, how it creates a greater vision in your children as they are living through the experiences of these characters that they're reading about. This is a really good one. I do like the Read Aloud Family. I do like the fact that it comes from a Christian perspective. I feel like if you have read, what's the first one? The Read Aloud Handbook. If you've read the Read Aloud Handbook, this is a lot of the same, although there is a little bit of Christianity put on it as far as picking books with good moral character for your kids to look up to those people. But I feel like if you've read the Read Aloud Handbook, this is sort of just kind of an extra layer. It is a good one to read if you don't have access to the first title, but I think if you've read the first one, you will get a lot of the same from this title. The next book that I read was called Homeschool Bravely. This is a book that I come back to again and again every summer, just as sort of a pick-me-up, prepare me for the next homeschool year, and it doesn't disappoint. I don't know about you, but when I hit probably April and into the beginning of the summer, I can feel a little beat up from the past homeschool year. Like, I start to lose my vision, I start to lose my composure and my confidence. It's sort of that dragging to the finish line of the school year. And picking up Homeschool Bravely just reminds me of those things. It reminds me of my calling. It reminds me of why I'm doing this, and it reminds me that I'm not doing this in my own power. This author is really great about bringing everything back to Scripture, bringing back our mission, back tying it into Scripture, and reminding us that if the Lord has called us to this mission field, the Lord will provide the strength, will provide the vision, will provide the answers. Is it going to always be easy? No. This is not a book that glosses over the challenges of homeschool. It faces them face on, right off the bat. There are challenges, but it's sort of a re-energizing book for the next year. You can do this, and this is why you can do this, is that the Lord is behind you. The Lord is loving your kids. The Lord is blessing your homeschool. If you are diligent in your vision and in your mission, those other things will come along. That's not for you to take on. It's not for you to force your kids to learn. It's for you to be diligent in what you've been called to do. So I looked on my Goodreads account the other day and I realized this is probably the third or fourth time that I've read through this book. I would definitely put it in my top 5 for homeschool books, and that's a video I need to make really soon. So that's everything that I read personally in the month of June. In our homeschool, we started a read aloud that I was really excited about, and it just sort of fizzled out, and that was Victory on the Walls. This is the story of Nehemiah and how they get permission to rebuild the walls around the city, but they are coming against such opposition that they have to, one person is building and one person is defending. They're working in teams because there's this constant bombardment of people who don't want them to rebuild the wall. We all really liked the book, but again, this is one of those books with names and places and that are so unfamiliar to us that to read it, to do it as a read aloud was very, very challenging. It was hard for the listener to track what was happening. I felt like the reader was doing a really good job, but it has to be read with a lot of expression, first of all, and I think it would be better suited for a personal read because then you can kind of see names and places and dates without trying to track them so much mentally. We ended up laying this one aside halfway through the month. I have one kid who picked it up and finished it on her own, and then one that just was fine with not finishing it. I would like to go back and read it myself from the beginning. It's a historical read, and so it's a good way of putting biblical history in literature form, but it just, as a read aloud, did not work for us. At that point, we picked up Midsummer Mayhem. I think this was right at the end of May, so we're, of course, still in that one. And that's about a little girl whose dad is a food critic. And this little girl loves to bake, she loves to cook, but she feels like the forgotten child in the family. Everybody else is really good at everything else, and so she enters this baking contest to sort of prove herself, but it's the challenges that she faces along the way, as well as sort of this mystery that's going on with her dad, who is now eating everything in sight, and they don't quite know what happened to his discerning palate. We're about halfway through that one right now, and we're having a lot of fun with it. So what's coming up for the month of July? Of course, we are still reading Midsummer Mayhem as our family read aloud, and I have started 1 Year After. It's a continuation of a series where I read in May, I think it was, I read 1 Second After, and it's the aftermath of the small town after an EMP attack and what they have to do to survive. Very out of my box, but great series so far, a little gritty. It's not something I would typically read, especially in the summer. I'm looking for something light and fluffy. This is not light and fluffy. So that's what I have started and will be reviewing in the month of July. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you're reading or what I should add to my list or even to our homeschool read alouds. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time. Bye guys.